cities, and according to government, these cities were supposed to spark off in phases. Now I must report I am coming to you live from Soroti, and of course the road you're seeing is called Moroto Road. The team of technocrats from Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development have decided to make a visit to assess the performance of Soroti. What are their challenges? And of course with me I'll be speaking to one of the senior sociologists from the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, particularly in the Department of Urban Development. Let us know why they have decided, of course, to make this visit and what recommendation must they have to put on board to see that Soroti becomes a better city. And of course joining me is Mr. Bogere Stephen, a senior sociologist from the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. Mr. Bogere, it's a pleasure and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Like you have put it, I would like to thank Smart TV. We are in Soroti City, one of the 10, currently the 10 functional cities, to appreciate the development opportunities and challenges facing urbanization. As you are aware, as a country, we are current at 27% urban. Urban development is at a very high speed in terms of seeing towns grow, towns develop. But along the way, we have challenges, but also with opportunities. As a department and in the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, we are implementing the National Urban Policy. The National Urban Policy is a policy, it is a framework which is guiding urbanization for us to achieve sustainable urban development in this country, where people have jobs, where we are promoting infrastructure development, and where we are promoting urban resilience in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 11. Under the policy, we are promoting a good governance model, which we call urban forums. Urban forums are like platforms which are voluntary, and these are citizens driven, with civil society, the private sector and other sectors, to work in partnership with government in terms of promoting sustainable urban development. So we are in this city to interact with the city managers, the mayor and his executive, the town clerk and the executive, and the citizens, to appreciate the levels of development, how they are perceiving the city status, how far have they gone. Don't forget that we are also implementing the Uganda Support to Municipal Development Infrastructure Development Program in this city among the 22 urban authorities. And we are here to assess the performance. A lot of development is going on here. They have a drainage master plan. They are implementing a soil use management strategy. They have a number of roads they are working on. The newly opened the market. These are the infrastructure and other urban interventions we are going to appreciate. And we are working in close partnership with the body we call the Uganda National, the UNAF, Uganda National Urban Forum. They are a multi-stakeholder group at national level. They were democratically elected. They are supporting us in the building capacities among urban managers to ensure that development is inclusive, it is integrated, and is responsive to the needs of the people. So we are here for 2 days. We shall have a number of talk shows. We shall interact with the members of the public to tell us how do they perceive urban development in this city and what can they bring to table. So it is in a way a familiarization tour to the members of the executive members of the UNAF, Uganda National Urban Forum, but to us as a department, we are building capacity. We have had a series of urban managers training workshops, and we are seeing the towns grow, jobs being created, the road network is improving, as well as physical planning. So we are happy to be with you, Smart TV. We shall be updating you on what goes on as our events unfold. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bogere. Of course, we'll continue with engagement later on during the course of the day. Thank you for allowing to speak to us. Of course, dear viewers, of course, that is it from the senior sociologist, of course, definitely of lands, housing, and urban development. Of course, like I've informed you, so that were approved by government, of course, in 2018. Of course, amongst the approved cities, basically we have Hoima is one of those. We have Gulu. We have cities like Masaka. Of course, definitely we have cities like Imbarara. Talk about Fort Potro. Talk about Entebbe. And of course, talk about what we basically call the 15 cities. And of course, like I have always been informing you, that of course our niche, our coverage as Smart 24 TV is basically to do a follow-up on some of the government approvals in place every morning. Of course, that is our niche. And of course, Soroti, like we'll be seeing throughout the course of the day, it is made up of a number of things. Of course, we have the Soroti Air Strip. Of course, it's just right behind there. I know, of course, during the course of the day, we'll be basically showing you some of the few things that make up Soroti as a city. Of course, Rita and Sonko, I must say, of course, some of us that have been to this city, we know it's one of those unique cities. But of course, we know there are many things that are taking cost throughout the day. Of course, one of those that are being affecting the country right now are the prices of fuel. Let's see if there is any difference, of course, from Kampala as a city and then Soroti. Of course, we'll be looking at the prices of fuel. In Soroti as a city, is there any difference? Of course, like I have said, of course, we are now standing on one of the, basically, one of what we call the petrol stations, of course, in Soroti. Of course, you could see, dear viewers, of course, the outcry of every Ugandan right now is the prices of fuel, of course, escalating highly. And that has determined the increase of prices of a number of commodities. Of course, you know, just as recent, those in the taxi industry also have increased fares, of course, countrywide. But of course, we'll be making a 360-degree tour, of course, to assess what is it. Of course, now when you look at, of course, this is called the Gasco petrol station. Gasco petrol station, of course, when you look at the prices of what we call the premium, it is at 5,300 shillings. Of course, this is Soroti. And of course, now look at diesel is 5,100 Ugandan shillings. Of course, that is the current price, of course, in Soroti as a city. That is exactly why we are here. Not just to look at the city, not just to look at the infrastructure, but of course also basically look at the things. Of course, we'll be speaking to a number of maybe those in the transportation sector. Of course, we'll be making a number of coverages. You could see, of course, it's one of the infrastructures. Of course, the road network is one of those. We'll be speaking to a number of people just to give us their perspective on how they are looking at things, of course, in terms of the escalating prices, in terms of a number of things. And of course, you could see maybe it could be one of the reasons for the escalating fuel prices in the heart of Kampala. Of course, we'll be speaking to one of the people in this place, and then basically. But of course, I must say, Rita and on what exactly is happening in Soroti as a city. What is it?
Thank you very much, Fred Makubia. He's currently in Soroti, and Soroti district. Soroti is now a new city, and the Lands Ministry has actually been going through to see and visit to clearly see how things are in Soroti. So clearly, this shows you how different cities in Uganda are developing greatly, and clearly shows you where the country is actually going. Speaking of which, when you look at some of the fuel prices in there in Soroti, for example, premium, that is petrol, being at around 5,300, that is at that particular petrol station. Then diesel is at 5,100. Well, here in Kampala, the premium of petrol is actually shooting up to 5,500. In some of petrol stations, having it at 5,430, 5,440, around that same price. Then diesel shooting to 5,100. 5,100 and 5,120, and then others have it at 5,200. So it is now it's actually a country situation when it comes to the fuel prices, and so that shows you how the country is and what we're actually facing in general as the entire country. Well, that is what is actually coming in from there as well. Now let's try to get back here and try to have a look at what is coming in from the SMB report. Still, it is the Monday business desk taking a look at what are those stories that were making headlines throughout the weekend and the previous week that you might have missed here in our bulletins and as well as our daily programming. Well, this particular one still in the northeastern part of Uganda. Fred Makubuya is currently in Soroti, but this one is taking us to cattle rustling in Karamoja, where the army has blamed the neighboring countries for neglecting the fight against this particular cause. The UPDF spokesperson, Brigadier Felix Kulayigye, has attributed the rampant cattle rustling in Karamoja to the neighboring countries in his remarks. Brigadier Kulayigye notes that Uganda is doing its part by disarming, which is a very huge measure, rather than other countries like Kenya, who have not yet adopted this particular one. And let's have more of this report.
Cattle riding in Kenya is often viewed in the legitimizing context of tradition, climate change, the resource conflict, but increasingly it has much more to do with organized crime, meeting a rising demand for meat. Speaking to journalists, Brigadier Felix Kulayigye, the UPDF, that the Turkana who crosses into the country from Kenya have increasingly failed the Ugandan government in the fight against cattle rustling because they have never been disarmed by their government.
In the same effort to the border, you should ask that legislator. So the government of has moved a long way. I remember I traveled with the late Kategaya to Lodwar to meet his Kenyan counterpart in dealing with the question of disarming those who are illegally holding guns. And our neighbors have been promising that they are doing their best. So we keep praying and hoping that that will continue. And the other thing is that we have liaison officers both this side of the border and the other side of the border to monitor what is going on. What, however, for me is gratifying is that despite what is being reported, movements are continuing in Karamoja, business is going on. One of the busiest routes is the route between Moroto and Rodwar. We believe the guns have come from neighboring countries, South Sudan and Kenya, because they have not disarmed as we have disarmed on this side. Two, those guns we lost, for example, the Turkanas were recovered. The Turkanas brought them back through our efforts and negotiations with the leaders. So these allegations of guns being coming from Nakasongola, check those pictures. I know that those pictures are the guns we make in Nakasongola.
The security in Uganda has reported the killing of people and theft of cattle by a large group of armed cattle rustlers believed to be from the neighboring countries. However, Brigadier Kulayigye as well notes that some of the local leaders also in the Karamoja region are not doing better in the fight against cattle rustling.
That some of the local leaders are not doing what is expected of them. Actually, some the cattle thefts. And you remember in the statement made by the members of parliament, this was rubbished. But the killing of a vice chairman in command of a wrestling group is testimony that we are speaking the truth.
In 2020, Uganda People's Defense Forces recovered 135 guns, 4 grenades and 1,954 bullets from the Karamoja rustlers, and the government is still doing so. Firearms were recovered from rustlers in the 9 districts of the Karamoja sub-region, including Abim, Kotido, Kabong, Amdat, Napak, Moroto, Nakapripriti, Nabilatuk, and Karenga.
We have an understanding, an MOU with Kenya. Turkana has come this side to graze and look for water, but they must come unarmed. So formally they come unarmed, but there are individuals who exploit the porous borders. Criminality has existed since Jesus' time. Or like Dube said, since the Pope was an altar boy. Do we stop working? We shall not. But certainly, guns from illegal hands must be recovered. Dealing with external aggression is our job as UPDF. And as you may know, the cattle thieves are not aggressors of the country. They are petty criminals.
In 2021 as well, the government launched a forceful but peaceful disarmament exercise. Statistics show that by September 2013, the army had recovered 31,892 guns and more than 20,000 bullets. During the 2011 election campaigns in Karamoja, President Yoweri Museveni ordered for the recruitment of the disarmed rustlers into the local defense unit, that's LODU, to help the army trace the remaining warriors who had refused to hand in their guns. Pedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV.
All right, and so when you look at what is coming in from Karamoja regions, the Uganda People's Defense Forces was called upon and recruited heavily in the region there to prevent and put an end to the cattle rustling that is ongoing, that is rampant, that is on a rise in Karamoja. And one of the reasons that you've clearly seen is to protect others, all the other innocent cattle rustlers, rather the cattle owners or the herdsmen in there. People were dealing in nomadic pastoralism, and you see Karamoja is a region filled up with a lot of nomadic pastoralists, and but there is always a very big challenge of theft that is ongoing. And not only theft, why is called cattle rustling? It's theft of cattle with the use of guns. And people actually lose lives, animals are actually stolen, and then you imagine losing your life and even losing your property, or losing your property and during the course of the fight. So that is a battle that is actually ongoing in there in the Karamoja region. However, the Uganda People's Defense Forces and through the spokesperson, Brigadier Felix Kulayigye, have attributed the rampant cattle rustling in Karamoja to the neighboring countries, saying they're doing less on fighting this vice in the region, because country, as the UPDF is actually trying its level best, most of these cattle rustlers actually steal off these animals, either take them to South Sudan or pass through and head to Kenya. And then surprisingly, the security officials in Kenya are doing less in making sure that they fight the vice or making sure that they protect people's animals. So this shows you what is actually coming in from there, and shows you where the need is and why the battle to end cattle rustling in Karamoja is still a one-man army, or is still a situation for the UPDF to see that they make sure that this comes to an end. It is a battle that will surely come to an end, because the UPDF has actually been heavily deployed. A number of asylums have actually gone running away from the authorities, and then some animals have been recovered. A lot, according to reports that are actually coming in out there, government is actually harmonizing with the cattle rustlers, and also emphasizing on unity, and emphasizing that people in Karamoja or the Karamojong should report different cases of cattle rustling in there. Remember, the start of the new year, the government actually brought about permits for cattle. One of the reasons why these permits were actually put in place was because the government thought it wise that if at all you're a herdsman, you're supposed to have, you're supposed to know the number of cattle you have, and therefore your permit indicates the number of cattle that you're moving with. So by the time you reach a district border and you actually meet the authorities at the border, then you're supposed to hand in your permit, which is fully signed by the veterinary officer, which shows or by the authorities from the particular region or district you're from, which shows that the cattle that you're actually moving with belongs to you. And that is where the permit situation came through to see that they prevent the cattle rustling. But regardless of the permits being initiated or being brought on board, cases were rising day in, day out. And therefore UPDF realized it was time to use the armed forces to actually go in there, to use force to say that these things can easily come to an end. That is for the people in Karamoja. And surely what is actually coming in from there is that the battle is still ongoing, but the UPDF says that they are making sure that they are putting this to an end and putting all the security measures on board, and making sure that nothing stops, or that at least nothing stops them from putting cattle rustling to an end. However, they've actually admitted that they're facing some challenges with the fact that not only are they facing a challenge from the neighboring countries, because the neighboring countries are not taking part in fighting this vice, so it is only left to the UPDF, and it becomes quite difficult if you're fighting it alone, as the cattle rustlers are actually taking these animals from Uganda, taking them to Kenya, for example, to sell them off that side, or to apparently own them in one way or the other. So that is a very huge concern that is arising from there, according to the UPDF spokesperson, and a very key role that is clearly shows you that this is a battle not only for the Ugandans or not only for the Uganda People's Defense Forces, but it should be a collective battle for everyone taking part in this particular fight against cattle rustling. Because imagine, you need to safeguard not only people's property or people's cattle, but also their life. That is why the UPDF is heavily deployed in there in Karamoja, and it's still there though, making sure that this comes to an end, that is in cattle rustling. Well, that is it from this particular segment and hour. We're getting back after the break to discuss more from the press review, and away from the press review and more SMB reports. Stick around. This is Smart 24 and this is your morning Kickstarter.